The leading cause of disability in the U.S. for people aged 15 to 44, do you know what it is? It's depression. And that is huge to think about. This is something that a lot of people can relate to. And even if you have not been diagnosed with a major depressive disorder, you've probably experienced some degree of depression at some point in your life. And if you haven't already, it's possible that it could happen. So this is a discussion that we really need to have. And there's a lot of things right now in our society, mixed messages about mental health treatment and how to go about addressing things like depression, anxiety, things that are very common and a lot of people experience. And there's a lot of the things people are talking about that I really don't agree with, but I'm going to share with you guys my views on what I think could help from the standpoint of the universal law of attraction. And I do want to go into some background, so I'm going to start with that. And then I'm going to get into discussing what I think could help a lot of people to start turning their depression into a state of feeling better. Because everybody that's depressed wants to feel better, and that's important to do. And sometimes that takes a whole lot of energy that people don't have when they're depressed. But maybe some of these ideas will resonate with some of you who are feeling in a low state. Maybe you're already downright depressed, and that's how you came upon this episode, because you were searching for podcasts talking about depression. This is going to be a different kind of discussion on depression. And some people might label it as toxic positivity. And I do have another upcoming episode where I discuss toxic positivity. That's not something that I align with. I think that you get what you focus on. And that's how depression comes about. And that's also how you pull out of it. Here's my perspective on depression. I'm Dr. Williams, and this is my podcast. I have 2 graduate degrees in psychology, am a licensed mental health counselor, and an expert in the area of spirituality. I am devoted to living my best life and am sharing it with all of you. I'm bringing my expertise, education, and life experiences to you through this podcast. Everyone deserves to enjoy life, and that is what I'm here to talk about. Depression, anxiety, grief, you name it, we all go through it at one time or another. I believe there's a better way to come at these things than mainstream mental health care offers, and I'm here to offer you my perspective and dig into discovering how you can feel good no matter what life throws at you. It is my intention to contribute goodness to this world, and the content herein is how I do that. But one disclaimer before we dive in. Should you decide to apply the information offered here, be prepared for improvements in your life. You may even live happily ever after, and you'll only have yourself to thank. This is Feel Good Now, the Dr. Williams podcast. I have been looking forward to discussing my experience recently with you guys for a little while now. But first, I feel like I need to give a little bit of background and an introduction to my way of thinking and the influence that is huge in my life, the teachings of Abraham. And I came to know Abraham when I was listening to a podcast that was just a recording of several different spiritually focused books. And one of the books that I listened to was Ask and It Is Given by Jerry and Esther Hicks. Well, it's really a book written by Abraham. And Abraham is just a name of a collective consciousness. So that's source energy. A lot of different, it's really kind of hard to explain because we are not individual souls, but it kind of gives that idea that we are when I discuss a collective consciousness. But really, it's just source energy, or it's God, it's whatever title you give to that power, the bigger power, right? The thing that drives us all and the creation of everything.
And what happened was Esther Hicks began meditating, and after about 9 months of regular meditation, she realized that she was being inspired by Abraham. Through her work with meditation and connecting with, her inner being, her source energy, Abraham, she was able to start channeling Abraham so that people could come to her. She could bring forth Abraham and people could ask questions. These are like big questions about the universe and life and anything that you would want to ask of a higher power. So that is what I listen to the most. If I am ever in a moment where I can be listening to something, I'm listening to Abraham. And they're just recordings of workshops that Esther has done where people come and they get called forth and they ask questions and Abraham answers the questions. I'm actually getting ready to go to one. I'm going to a workshop in mid-July, and I have been thinking nonstop about the questions that I have and what I could ask Abraham. But the interesting thing is, a lot of times my questions get answered. So I kind of have this ongoing asking and then answering. I receive the answer. So I really don't have a lot of questions currently. But that's kind of how this works. And that was the point I was getting to. The book that I listened to, Ask and It Is Given, is just that. You ask, your inner being gives it to you. And that's the law of attraction. That is the law of the universe. The thing that most people don't understand is that you can control it and you can be a deliberate creator and create your own experience in your own life with a little bit of practice. I don't get a whole lot of time in my day to sit and listen to Abraham. If I go like on a road trip by myself, I listen. But what I do on a daily basis is I normally listen while I'm in the shower. And it wasn't always this way. Before I was inspired to listen to podcasts, after a good friend of mine told me how much she was enjoying it, I used to just take a shower and I realized I was being inspired. I came out of my showers with grand ideas. And it's actually what gave me the idea for this podcast. I thought originally that I would be discussing my shower thoughts, the things that occurred to me while I was in the shower. And it was always spiritually based things, realizations, kind of like epiphanies, right? Where I understood something. What I understand now is the reason that I was being inspired in those ways was because I was in alignment with my inner being at that time. And that's a big thing for me to realize because alignment is always the goal. If you could find your alignment and remain aligned, everything would just unfold beautifully and you would enjoy life every second of it. You would not be disappointed with anything. That's what alignment offers. And knowing that the shower time opens that up for me, it allows me to find my alignment a lot easier, is a huge tool for me. But then, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, maybe less than that, maybe a week ago, I was inspired to not listen to Abraham or anything while I took a shower. And I followed the inspiration. And then I was inspired for this topic. And I'm going to put on my psychologist hat today and talk a little bit to you about depression, because depression is debilitating. And those who are suffering from depression want nothing more than to feel better, but feel so stuck that they feel like nothing can make the difference. So I want to talk about that because I realized in my moment in my personal shower experience, I was living in alignment and I was doing it in a feel good now kind of way. So I want to explain that to you guys and hopefully inspire you with something that would work for you individually. Because obviously, maybe that doesn't work for you. Maybe the shower is a stressful thing for you, or you don't like it for whatever reason. But there's something that will work for you. But first, before I can get into that shower experience, I have to tell you about another one. It's funny to talk about showering so much, but it's kind of a big deal for me. About a month ago, I realized that my inner being was communicating with me, and it was such an amazing experience. It was pivotal. Like, it changed the way that I view things, and I really knew I was on the right track, which was awesome. What happened was, one of the things that I am really focused on manifesting is my dream home. And I think about it often, and it feels really good to think about it, and that's the key. And I'll get into that in a minute too. Because sometimes when there's something that you want, you end up focusing on not having it, and that does the opposite. So I'm feeling really good about thinking about my dream house and all of the aspects of it that I really want. And I do this regularly, think about it often. Well, a little bit of background. This is pretty personal, but it is relevant, so I'm going to share it with you. I have been using the same body wash for probably 15 years. I kind of just find something that works for me, and then I just stick with it. My husband doesn't use the same body wash as me. He has his own. And he was getting low, and I do the shopping. So I went to order him some more, but they were out of the kind that he normally uses. So I bought the only other option, which was a liquid Neutrogena. This is the same soap that I grew up with when I was a teenager and living in my family home. It was a wonderful home. And I was inspired about a month ago to not use my regular body wash and instead to use the Neutrogena. So I did it. I followed my inspiration despite my desire to always stick with the norm. And as I was washing and smelling the soap, I realized that I was remembering my childhood home and how wonderful that time in my life felt, because those smells brought it all back for me. And I'm experiencing this and I'm feeling really good and remembering how good that was, and that house that I loved, and we lived on the river, and it was just this magical time in my life, and all the people that were involved in my life, and it just brought all these reminiscent, wonderful feelings back. And I noticed it, and then I started thinking, wow, this is really nice. Why is this happening? And that's when I realized my inner being led me to that through inspiration to allow me better manifestation of my dream home, because it conjured up all of the feelings, the true, real life, relatable feelings that I had in my childhood, so I could feel them right then in the moment. It made me feel good right now about a house. And then when I realized that that was what was happening, that communication occurred between me, my consciousness, and my inner being, whoa. I'm in a hot shower and I just got covered in goosebumps, because there we were. We matched up. that alignment was right there in that moment. And I realized what was happening. And I realized that my inner being was leading me based on my desire, because that's what your inner being does. That's all your inner being does. Your inner being knows you better than anybody and is working for you at getting you everything you want. It was such an amazing experience. And I actually kept my alignment most of the day. I remember just feeling kind of buzzy, like there was energy flowing through my body and everything was greener and brighter and more colorful and smelled good. It just, because I was in alignment with my inner being, who is always in that place. But as humans, when we are not in that alignment, we often miss those things because we're off in our mind. And our mind does not always think about good things, does it?
Real quick, before I get back to this topic, I want to know if you have a product or service that aligns with the content here on the Dr. Williams podcast. If so, this space could be your advertisement. Reach out to me by going to drwilliamspodcast.com. Okay, back to the episode.
Oftentimes you're worrying or feeling sad or hateful or angry, and you just let your mind go on this lazy path. You don't even realize you're doing it. The only way to really know is to check in with yourself about what you're thinking. So this brings me to the discussion on depression. While I was in the shower last week, when I was inspired to not listen and just to take the shower, it was a better experience for me because I was focused on what I was doing and how I was feeling, and I was being mindful of how all of that was coming together at the time. And I realized in that moment that just something as simple as that could turn things around, or at least start to, for somebody who is in a deep depression. The thing is, it all really comes down to momentum. If you are experiencing anxiety or depression or hate or anger, anything negative, it's because it has a lot of momentum going. It's been given a lot of thought, whether you're aware of it or not. And that attracts more of it. So then more things come into your experience that give you those same negative feelings. The ball's rolling faster. More momentum. So first thing is the importance of realizing how you're feeling. Admitting that you are experiencing negative emotions. And then you have to do something about it. Now, I want to interject here because one of the big teachings that Abraham focuses on is not efforting. Because this should be a fun, lighthearted, easy, playful thing, manifesting. It should come with ease. It should not be something that you have to try really hard at. And efforting normally gets you the opposite. But I think that when it comes to depression, that's an exception. I think that you're going to have to do a little bit of effort in order to start pulling yourself out of that. So with the shower, the reason that I thought it would be helpful is because it allowed me to focus on what was happening right now, to try to feel good about the things that I liked. The shower offers a really good opportunity for this because there's a lot of things that you can control. For instance, comfort. You get to pick the temperature of your water, and you can make it just perfect for you. I think that's a really good place to start for somebody that doesn't feel like anything is going good for them. Clear your mind of that stuff and just stand in the shower and feel the water. Feel how good it feels. And then think about that. Think about, I love the temperature of this water. This water feels so good on my skin. It's nice to feel clean. And you just start thinking similar thoughts about what you're experiencing in the moment. In psychology, And in therapy specifically, this is what we refer to as mindfulness. And mindfulness is something that therapists use to bring patients into the moment and out of their head, because that's where the thoughts are trailing down negative paths. So a lot of the techniques that therapists use are things like take your shoes and socks off and put your feet on the ground, either inside or going outside is even better, where you can feel like the grass or something natural, and you just focus on feeling it. So it takes you out of your head and puts you into your body. Sometimes therapists will suggest holding an ice cube. I've used that one before, and some people liked it, but there's some pain associated with cold, so I don't necessarily lean toward that being the most beneficial technique. But that's what this shower experience was. It was pure mindfulness. It was just feeling with my body all the wonderful things that I was experiencing in the shower. The reason that this is helpful is because if you can bring yourself into a physical experience in a good way, you are automatically aligned with your inner being. And your inner being cannot experience anything negative. So alignment is always the goal. Bringing yourself into that experience of feeling good physically, doesn't have to be mentally or emotionally, although that will follow. But the physical feeling good aligns you with your inner being and allows those other things to flow. If you can do that for 16 to 17 seconds, that's all it takes, you start to gain momentum. Now you have momentum going in the positive direction. After those 16 or 17 seconds, if you can continue it for another 16 or 17 seconds, now you're getting even more momentum. And you get the picture. This is how these things work. You got to depression by focusing on all of the negative things, which gained momentum. You have to do it the other way in order to pull out of it. And some people, I can just hear some people right now saying, I can't. I'm too tired. I can't find anything that is good. And if that is your state and that is your position, I am not going to even try to counter it, because this has to come from a place of you. This has to come from your desire to feel better. If you don't want to feel better, then you will not feel better. But if you truly do want to pull out of that depressive feeling and you want some relief, this is the way to do it. But it doesn't have to be the shower. I just think the shower is a really good suggestion because it just allows for controlling the conditions and allows some opportunity for feeling good. But let's say somebody is so depressed that they can't even get out of bed. So they can't even make it to the bathroom to get into the shower. That is just too much. They don't have the energy or the drive. What I would recommend is doing the exact same thing and pulling yourself into a state of mindfulness and focusing on the aspects of your bed that feel good. There is a reason why you're choosing to be in that bed right now, right? Because something about it is comforting or feels good. Whether it's just lying down, the feeling of the sheets, the squishiness of your pillow, the quiet of the room, the privacy, whatever it is, there's something good there. Every moment has something good that is available to you. It just depends on where your focus is. But most people who are depressed like that and in bed are brooding. They're laying there and they're thinking about all of the terrible things going on in their life, or saying really awful things about themselves. And that never feels good. The thing right now that I want you to understand is negative emotions are not a bad thing. They sound like it because I'm over here trying to explain ways for you to pull out of it so that you can feel positive emotions. But here's the secret. Changing the way you perceive negative emotions can help a lot. Because here's the truth. The reason that you experience negative emotions is communication from your inner being. And that tells you that you're out of alignment. If you are experiencing something negative, a negative thought, if you're thinking something and it makes you feel bad, then that tells you that is different than how your inner being thinks. When you're on to feeling good, you're in alignment with your inner being. That's your true self. That's really how you feel about it. This is your guidance system. Your emotions are guiding you through life. So when you feel something negative, you know you're out of alignment. That's not the place that you, your true self, wants to be. Finding that alignment allows you to get back on track with yourself in your own life. This is not about pleasing anybody but you. You please you. You get happy for you. This is how you improve your life. If this is what you want, this is what you do. You recognize the negative emotion and then think about, well, if my inner being doesn't agree with that thought, what does my inner being feel or think about it? That might take some time for you to start receiving some thoughts or feelings, but it will happen. If you seek guidance from your inner being, you will receive it. Okay, I mentioned before that it's kind of tricky business when you have a desire. So let's take feeling better, since we're talking about depression. If it is your desire to feel better, but you cannot actually feel good right now while thinking about feeling better, you are really focused on the absence of feeling good. So that is actually counterproductive. You know what? Let's change it. Let's give a different example. Let's focus on something material. So let's say you have a car and your car is not very reliable and it has terrible gas mileage and it has a really funky smell. It always has because you bought it used and the guy at the car dealership told you that it was nothing, but really it smells like a dead animal. And you know there was something dead in there. And so when you're in your car, you can't help but think, oh, gosh, I really want a better car. But the problem is you are not in alignment in that situation because what you're focused on is your lack of the better car. You're focused on the negative car that you actually have. You're focused on the smell and the bad gas mileage and the unreliability of your car. You're focused on all these negative things. When you find alignment, what you do is you feel the way that you're going to feel when you have the better car. And you can see where that's kind of tricky because desire is like a stick. When you pick up your desire, you pick up both ends. There's what you want and there's the lack of what you want. And really getting good at this manifesting thing requires you to know which one you're actually attracting to you. And it all comes down to your feeling. You have to feel good in the moment in order to align yourself with your desire. So back to the depression thing. That's why I really like the shower. Because you can be feeling awful and you hop in the shower and it gives you a moment to focus on something outside of your mind, something physical that feels good. And then literally focus on that. And that's where I mean that it's going to take a little bit of effort in order to pull out of this because you're actually going to have to try to focus on that good feeling and feel it. You have to feel it. You can't just fake it. Faking it will not get you there. You have to actually feel it. And that's actually where smell comes in, I think. So the smell of the Neutrogena automatically brings me there. I feel good and reminiscent. It just conjures up all of these positive feelings for me because it is linked to a positive time in my life. So what is the smell for you? Is there something that you just love? You just love the smell of it. It just makes you feel good when you're smelling it. Another one for me is crayons. When I smell crayons, I am taken back to the first day of school, back when like elementary school, when school was like really exciting and you got all of your school supplies and your new backpack and you're wearing your new outfit and you're going into the classroom that's all set up all nice and it just smells like crayons to me. And even now, my kids color and I smell the crayons and I'm like, oh, I love that smell. The smell of cut grass is another one. It just reminds me of summer as a kid. And I feel like I have to say, because I'm talking about all these positive aspects of my childhood, but that's not to say that it was perfect. And I'm not going to go into that right now, but there were some really great things in my childhood. And there's some smells that are linked to those things that help me get right back there. So if there's something for you like that, then use that. Use that. Even sounds. If there's a song that just lifts you up, you just feel better when you're listening to that song, do that. For me, it's airplanes and lawnmowers. I remember being young and it was sunny outside and I was laying on my bed and there was like a beam of light streaming in from the window on my bed and I felt so warm and cozy. And I had my window open and the breeze was coming in and I could hear people out mowing the lawn and I could hear airplanes passing. And for some reason, that just gives me all the good feels. I just love that. But it's got to be both at the same time. So just hearing airplanes in the wintertime doesn't do the same thing. It's got to have the lawnmowers with it. The biggest thing to remember is that your power is always in the now. Nothing else matters but right now. So if you can feel good right now and follow that by feeling good right now and follow that by feeling good right now, now you're gaining some momentum. Now you're starting to feel better. It's working. You're realizing, wow, there is actually something to this. Yesterday, I had to do a road trip because I had a doctor's appointment that was at a place about 2 hours away. And my mom, bless her, she watched my boys for me while I went over to my doctor's appointment. And I was really feeling good yesterday. I was definitely in alignment. I turned on a fun song while I was driving my kids out to my mom's house, and my older son and I were rocking out to it, and he was laughing and I was laughing, and my younger one was, he was there for it, but not in the same way. And we just were really having fun, and the sun was shining. It was a beautiful day. And I dropped them off and I got on the road and I was just feeling so good and I was appreciating everything. And I was listening to Abraham, and I listened to Abraham all the way to my doctor's appointment. And then I was inspired about, 15 minutes before I got to my doctor's appointment. I was inspired to reach out to a friend of mine who lives over in the area, and I hadn't seen her in a really long time. And we talk, and we've been talking about seeing each other. And so I called and I asked her if she was going to be around, making sure she didn't have any appointments or anything like that. And she welcomed my visit. And I called and I asked my mom if it was all right, if she didn't mind watching the boys a little bit longer, and that I wouldn't be too long, but I wanted to see her. And everything was working out. So I get done with my doctor's appointment and I head over to see my friend, and her daughter and her granddaughter joined, and we all just had a nice time together. And I felt myself letting a little bit of anxiety and worry creep in, because even though I was having a really good day, my appointment went well, I was feeling good, the weather was wonderful, Traffic flowed easily, like you name it, it was all going my way. I let this anxiety and fear about my trip home creep in because it was a Friday, and coming back to where I live from that area on a Friday, a lot of times is, I don't want to say it's hell, but it's hell. The traffic gets really bad. A lot of people come over this way on the weekends. It's kind of like a weekend place to come. They wanted to go and get some lunch, and I hadn't eaten anything, so we went out and I paid for things right when I got there so that I could leave as soon as I was done eating. And I had a nice time with them. We ate, and then I was like, I gotta get going. And they checked the ferry schedule for me, and it was a 2-hour wait. And I thought, okay, well then I'm going to drive around, and I'm going to take the freeway, and I need to get on the road now. It was 1:30 in the afternoon. Normally, this drive would take 2 hours. It took me 4. A whole 4 hours. And normally, before knowing what I know now, I would have been a ball of stress about it. I would have been all tight in my neck and my shoulders, and I would have been worrying that my mom is upset because she had to watch the boys longer and it's taking way longer than it should have. And I mean, it was stop and go traffic. It was so slow. But I just didn't let myself be upset about it. I just kept finding other things that were really good. And I appreciated the fact that I was getting some alone time, something that I don't get a lot of. So I was able to have the peace and the quiet and the alone time. And I got to listen to Abraham, which is something that I love to do. And I got to just be with me. And it was a beautiful day. The sun was shining and I could feel it on my skin. And it just was all good. I didn't care that I was stuck in traffic. I even made up a little song about feeling good and was noticing things that I added to my song. And it was just, I don't know, it was fine. And then, after listening to Abraham for, at this point, it had probably been 5 hours in all the travel time, I started to not like listening anymore. And I realized that my inner being was like, okay, this is feeling like a chore now. You're not really getting enjoyment out of this listening. It's time to change it up. So I turned it off and I turned on the radio, and every song that came on was just hitting the spot. It was just perfect. And I enjoyed it. I don't normally listen to music. I really prefer to listen to talk radio. But at this time, it was exactly what I needed. And my inner being knew that. And my inner being inspired me to do that. And I listened and I felt good about it because I trust my inner being. Nobody knows me better. It is me. It's me. It's me leading me. So that is my message for you today. Find a way to feel good right now in this moment and try to stay with it for 16 to 17 seconds and then do it again. Find other things that feel good in the moment. If you can feel good right now, and now, and now, you're going to start building that momentum, and you are going to feel better. Even if it is one step above depression, then when you go to sleep, momentum stops. And when you wake up, you have the opportunity to start off completely different than you did the day before. Or, if things are going well, to start off exactly the same. But you have a choice to make at that time when you wake up. You can start off in a positive direction and start gaining some momentum. Find your alignment. And you do that by feeling good in the moment. It's really a pleasure to talk to all of you. Thank you for being here with me.
That concludes this episode, but if you don't want to wait for the next episode to come out, I have more for you at drwilliamspodcast.com. You can learn more about me and my journey to podcasting, find all the ways to connect with me on social media, and there's a button to subscribe so you're the first to know what's new and upcoming. You also can shoot me an email at hello@drwilliamspodcast.com. You are so special to me, and your support does not go unnoticed. I want to support you too. This podcast is my outlet for growth because when you teach something, you hold yourself accountable and apply the information in life. But the inspiration for these episodes comes in a variety of ways, and one of those is through you. I want you to feel like this is your show too. So send me a message and let me know which episode is your favorite and why. And tell me if there's a topic you'd want to hear me talk about. Your feedback applies to so many people, and your suggestion could change someone's life for the better. The best way to do this is by subscribing to the show and leaving a review through your favorite podcast platform. I really listen to you guys, and this dialogue feeds my soul. You say that you're a fan of me, but truth be told, I am a fan of yours. Everything is working out for each of us, and we're all in this together.